The note Halmiani left in the margin wasn't a warning. It was a confession. And when Min Jae read it, he went completely silent. Because the account number written there, in that tiny, precise handwriting she used when something mattered more than anything else, didn't belong to an enemy. It didn't belong to Ji-won. It didn't belong to Lee Sung-min or Park Industries or any of the corporate players we'd spent weeks mapping and tracking and trying to outmaneuver. It belonged to his father. The father everyone in the Kang family believes died 25 years ago. I'm going to say that again because I need you to sit with it the way I had to sit with it when I first saw that name written in Halmiani's hand in the margin of her final letter. The account number, the Swiss private banking account that we were about to trace, that we thought would lead us to whoever was really funding Apex Capital, whoever was really behind Ji-won's attack on our family, belonged to Kang Hyun-suk, Min Jae's father, the man whose portrait hangs in the Kang Tech executive lobby, the man whose name appears on the company's founding documents, the man who died in a car accident when Min Jae was 7 years old and has been dead, definitively dead, memorialized and mourned and absent from this family for over 2 decades. That man. If you've been following this story from the beginning, if you've been with us through the corporate warfare and the board votes and Ji-won's patient, calculated return, you know that nothing in this family happens by accident. You know that Halmiani didn't leave notes in margins carelessly. You know that every piece of information she committed to paper, especially in her final months when she knew time was running out, was deliberate, purposeful, a breadcrumb for someone smart enough to follow it. She left us this breadcrumb, and it led to a dead man. Subscribe right now if you haven't already. Hit that notification bell, because what I'm about to tell you rewrites everything you thought you knew about this family. And I mean everything. It was 3 days after the board vote. 3 days after we'd watched Ji-won's face crack on that video screen when the regulatory suspension hit. 3 days after we'd walked out of that boardroom thinking we'd won a round, bought ourselves time, maybe even turned the tide. We were wrong. I was in the study. Again. I know. I keep returning to that room. But there's something about that space, the particular quiet of it, the way the lamp sits, the worn edge of the desk where Halmiani used to rest her arms when she was working late into the night, planning moves nobody else could see coming. I go there when I need to think, when I need to be alone with something difficult. And Halmiani's letter was difficult. I'd read it so many times by that point that I'd almost memorized the main text. The strategic advice, the warnings about Ji-won, the coded language about international holdings being leverage, not power. The line that had led me to discover Apex Capital's debt structure, the line that had possibly saved us at the vote. But I kept coming back to the margins, to the small handwritten additions that weren't part of the main letter. The notes she'd added later, in different ink, like footnotes to her own final transmission. Most of them I'd figured out. References to specific board members. Dates that corresponded to key company events. Names of law firms. All useful. All strategic. All very Halmiani. But there was one note, written so small I'd almost missed it the first dozen times I'd read the letter, that I couldn't make sense of. A name, a date, and a number. Kang Hyun-suk, March 1999. CH 7734-0892-4471. I'd stared at it for weeks thinking it was some kind of company reference. Maybe an old file number. Maybe a legal case. March 1999 was 25 years ago. Before I knew this family. Before I knew Korea. Ancient history. But something about it bothered me. The way it was written. The placement in the margin, separate from everything else. Like it didn't belong with the corporate strategy. Like it was something else entirely. So that night, 3 days after the vote, I decided to actually trace it. I called the CFO. Same guy I'd called at 2:30 in the morning weeks ago when I was chasing down Apex's capital structure. He'd gotten used to my late-night requests by then. Didn't even sound surprised when I asked him to identify what kind of number format I was looking at. CH prefix, he said after a pause. That's Swiss. Private banking account number. The format matches Credit Suisse or one of the old private wealth management houses. My stomach did something strange. Can you trace it? Not directly. Swiss banking privacy laws. But if you have the account holder's name and a creation date, I can make some calls. See if anyone in our network has access to cross-reference. I gave him the name. Kang Hyun-suk. March 1999. Long silence on his end. That's the former chairman's name, he said carefully. Min Jae's father. I know. The former chairman died in 1999. March 1999. I know that too. Another pause. What exactly are you asking me to find? I'm asking you to tell me if that account exists, if it's active, and if there's been any recent activity on it. That could take a few days. I need it by tomorrow morning. He agreed. I think mostly because at this point in our working relationship, he'd learned that when I asked for something with that particular tone of voice, there was a reason, and the reason was usually important. I hung up, sat in the study, stared at that margin note, and I thought about something Min Jae had told me once, years ago, back when we were first married and I was still learning the architecture of this family. He'd said his father died in a car accident. Single vehicle collision. Late at night. The funeral was private. Closed casket. Halmiani handled everything because Min Jae was only 7 and his mother, Min Jae's mother, who I've never met, who left the family shortly after the accident and moved to the United States and never came back, was too devastated to manage the details. That was the story. The official family history. The thing everyone knew and nobody questioned, because why would you question a car accident? Why would you question a closed casket at a private funeral for a man who died tragically young? Unless someone left you a note in the margin of her final letter with that dead man's name and a Swiss bank account number and a creation date that matched the month he died. The CFO called me back at 6 a.m. the next morning. I'd been awake since 4. Hadn't slept. Just sat in that study turning possibilities over in my mind like stones, looking for the shape that made sense. I found it, he said. No preamble. His voice was strange. Careful. The account exists. Active. Yes. I felt something cold move through my chest. Recent activity? 3 months ago. Large wire transfer out. Approximately 15 million US dollars. Sent to a holding company in Luxembourg. That holding company has ownership stakes in 3 shell corporations. Those shell corporations fund Apex Capital. I finished. Silence on his end. Then, how did you know? I didn't answer that. Anything else? The account was opened in March 1999. 25 years ago. It's been active this entire time. Small maintenance transactions. Nothing that would trigger reporting requirements. But consistent activity. Someone has been managing this account for 2.5 decades. Who's the account holder? It's listed under Kang Hyun-suk's name. But the beneficial owner information is protected under Swiss privacy law. I can't access that without a legal order, and even then it would take months. I thanked him. Hung up. Sat very still. The account existed. It was active. It had funded the attack on our family. And it was opened the month Min Jae's father died. 2 possibilities. Only 2. Either Kang Hyun-suk didn't die in 1999 and has been alive this entire time, hiding, waiting, planning. Or someone killed him, took his identity, and has been using his money and his name for 25 years to do. What? Position themselves to destroy the company he founded? Take revenge on the family he left behind? Both options were impossible. Both options were also the only explanations that fit the facts. I heard Min Jae moving around in the bedroom. Morning routine. Getting ready for the office. Normal day. Except nothing was normal, and I was about to tell my husband that his dead father might not be dead and might be the one trying to destroy everything we'd been fighting to protect. I waited until he came into the study looking for me. He was in a suit. Navy. Burgundy tie. The armor he wears when he needs to feel in control. He saw my face and stopped. What happened? I held up Halmiani's letter. Pointed to the margin note. I traced this. He came closer. Looked at the name. The date. The number. What is it? It's a Swiss bank account. It was opened in March 1999. The month your father died. It's been active ever since. And 3 months ago, it transferred $15 million into the shell companies that fund Apex Capital. I watched his face. Watched him process. Watched the same impossible math I'd been doing for hours run through his mind. That's not possible, he said finally. I know. My father died. I was there. I remember the funeral. I know. This has to be someone using his identity. A fraud. Maybe someone stole documents after he died. Maybe, I said. Or maybe Halmiani left us this note because she wanted us to know something she couldn't tell us while she was alive. He looked at me. What are you saying? I'm saying your mother left a margin note pointing us to an account in your father's name that's been funding the attack on this family. I'm saying she left it deliberately. I'm saying she knew something. And I think we need to find out what. Comment below if you've ever discovered that the person you thought was gone has been there all along, just hidden. Because what we found next would prove that some people don't die. They just disappear. And they wait. Min-jae didn't go to the office that day. We both called in. Told the team we were working from home. Unavailable for meetings. Crisis management mode without explaining what the crisis was. Because how do you explain that you're investigating whether your dead father is actually alive and trying to destroy your company? We sat in that study and we went through everything. Every document we had. Every piece of family history. Every memory Min-jae could pull from a childhood that felt like it belonged to someone else now. Tell me about the accident, I said. He leaned back in the chair. Closed his eyes. I was 7. It was late March. He'd been traveling a lot. Business trips. I didn't understand what he did back then, just that he was gone a lot and my mother was unhappy about it. Unhappy how? They fought. I'd hear them sometimes at night. Her crying. Him saying he had no choice. I didn't understand what they were fighting about. Do you understand now? He opened his eyes. I always assumed it was the company. The pressure. My father built Kongtech from nothing. It was consuming. Maybe she wanted him home more. Maybe she felt like she'd married the company instead of the man. What happened the night he died? He left the house late. Around 10 p.m. Said he had a meeting. My mother asked him not to go. I remember that specifically because she was crying and I'd never seen her cry like that before. He said he'd be back soon. He kissed me goodnight. That was the last time I saw him. His voice was very controlled. Very CEO. The voice he uses when emotion is too close and he needs distance from it. The call came around 2 a.m. Single vehicle accident. His car went off the road in the mountains outside Seoul. When they found it, the car had burned. The body was. He stopped. The body was badly damaged. Identified through dental records. Who identified him? The police. And Halmiani. She went to the morgue. She handled everything. Did your mother go? No. She couldn't. She stayed home. Halmiani said it was better that way. That she'd take care of it. And she did. The funeral was 3 days later. Private. Family only. Closed casket because of the condition of the remains. And then Halmiani took over the company. My mother left. Moved to the States. She said she couldn't stay in the house. Couldn't stay in Korea. Too many memories. She wanted to start over. Halmiani understood. Let her go. And I stayed here. Raised by my grandmother. Who made very sure I never forgot that my father built something important and it was my job to protect it. I let that sit for a moment. Then I asked the question I'd been circling. Did you ever see the body? He looked at me. I was 7. I know. But did you? No. Halmiani said it was too traumatic. That I should remember my father the way he was. Not the way he looked after the accident. Yes. So the only person who actually saw the body and confirmed it was your father was Halmiani. And the dental records. Which she provided. He went very still. What are you suggesting? I'm not suggesting anything. I'm asking questions. Because your grandmother left a note pointing to a bank account in your father's name that's been active for 25 years. And I need to understand if that's possible. It's not possible. He's dead. Then someone is using his identity. Someone with access to his dental records. Someone who knew enough about him to open a Swiss bank account in his name the month he died. Someone who's been managing that account for 2.5 decades. Who is that person? He didn't answer. Couldn't answer. Because the only person who had that kind of access, that kind of control, that kind of long-term strategic patience, was Halmiani. And Halmiani was dead. And dead people don't manage bank accounts. Unless they set something in motion before they died. Unless they left instructions. Unless they created a structure that could run on its own, executing a plan decades in the making. My phone rang. I almost didn't answer it. But the caller ID showed G1's number, and that was strange enough that I picked up. We need to talk, she said. No greeting. Her voice was tight. Angry. But also something else. Scared. I'm listening. Not on the phone. In person. Today. There's something you need to see. What? Just meet me. The coffee shop near Kongtech headquarters. The one on the 3rd floor. 1 hour. She hung up before I could respond. Min-jae had heard enough of the conversation to understand. G1 wants to meet. She said there's something I need to see. It's a trap. Maybe. Or maybe she's figured out the same thing we're figuring out, and she's just as terrified as we are. We went together. Both of us. Because whatever was happening, we were in it together, and I wasn't letting him face his sister alone after everything she'd tried to do to us. Ji-won was already there when we arrived, sitting at a corner table, expensive coffee untouched in front of her. She looked different than the last time I'd seen her on that video screen. Less composed, more human. Her hair wasn't perfect. Her makeup was minimal. She looked like someone who hadn't slept well in days. She didn't stand when we approached, just gestured to the chairs across from her. "Thank you for coming. You said there was something I needed to see," I said. She pulled out her phone, turned it toward us. On the screen was an email. Recent. Sent 2 days ago. From Apex Capital Holdings. To Ji-won Kong. Subject: Board position offer. The body of the email was formal, professional, offering Ji-won a seat on Kong Tech's board of directors, in exchange for supporting a leadership restructuring vote that would remove Min-jae as chairman and install new executive management. "They want you to vote against your own brother," I said. "I know what they want. That's not why I called you." She scrolled down, showed us the signature at the bottom of the email. Not a name, a title: Managing Partner, Apex Capital Holdings. And below that, a single line that made my blood run cold. "Looking forward to our family reunion." Family reunion. Min-jae saw it at the same time I did. Who sent this? I don't know. The email came through Apex's corporate account. But look at the metadata. She pulled up the email headers, showed us the routing information. It was sent from a Korean IP address. Not London, not Luxembourg where Apex is technically registered. Korea, specifically Seoul. And the timing of the email, it was sent at 3 a.m. Seoul time. Who sends corporate acquisition emails at 3 a.m.? Someone who's not operating in business hours, I said. Someone who's up in the middle of the night. Someone who knows things about this family that only family members would know. Ji-won interrupted. Because this email referenced things that aren't in any public document. It mentioned Halmini by name. It mentioned specific childhood memories that only someone who lived in that house would remember. It talked about the old family estate that we sold 15 years ago, using the private family name for it that we never used in public. She looked at both of us. Whoever is running Apex didn't just study the Kong family. They lived inside it. The coffee shop suddenly felt very small, very exposed. I looked around at the other customers. Normal people, having normal conversations, living normal lives where dead fathers stayed dead and family meant safety instead of warfare. "Show me the rest of the email," Min-jae said. Ji-won scrolled. The email went on for several paragraphs. Professional language about board governance and shareholder value and strategic vision. But threaded through it were personal details. References to family history. Names of people who'd been dead for years. Events that happened before I was part of this family, before Ji-won was old enough to remember clearly. One line in particular stood out. "The company your father built deserves leadership that honors his original vision." Your father. Not the founder. Not the late chairman. Your father. Personal. Familiar. "When did you receive this?" I asked. 2 days ago, right after the vote was postponed. Like whoever sent it knew exactly when to make contact. When I'd be most vulnerable, most likely to listen. "And are you?" Min-jae asked quietly. "Listening." She looked at him. "I'm here, aren't I? I brought you this instead of responding to them. Because I spent the last 2 days trying to figure out who could possibly know the things in this email. And there's only one answer that makes sense. Only one person who would have that level of detail about our childhood. About the family. About our father." "Who?" I asked, even though I already knew what she was going to say. "Our father." The word hung in the air between the three of us. Min-jae shook his head. "He's dead, Ji-won. We both know that." "Do we?" "Because I've been thinking about the accident. About how it happened. About how Halmini handled everything and neither of us actually saw him after. About how quickly our mother left. About how Halmini never, not once in 25 years, talked about him except in the most formal, public way. Like he was a historical figure. Not a person she loved. Not her son." She was right. I'd noticed that too, in the stories I'd heard. Halmini talked about the company's founder. About the chairman. About the legacy. Never about her son. Never about the man. Always the role. The position. The historical fact. "What are you saying?" Min-jae asked. "I'm saying I don't know what happened in March 1999. But I'm saying I don't think we know either. And I'm saying that whoever is running Apex knows our family well enough to be family. And if it's not someone we know is alive." She didn't finish the sentence. I pulled out my phone, showed them both the margin note from Halmini's letter. The account number. The name. I found this 3 days ago. I traced it this morning. It's a Swiss bank account opened in March 1999 in your father's name. It's been active for 25 years. And it funded Apex Capital. Ji-won stared at the note. Then at me. Halmini left you this? In the margin of her final letter. Hidden. Like she wanted someone to find it, but only if they were paying close enough attention. She knew, Ji-won said. She knew something about that account. About him. About what happened. But she didn't tell us, Min-jae said. She left a breadcrumb instead. What? I thought about that. Thought about Halmini. About how she operated. About how she never did anything without 3 layers of purpose. Because she couldn't tell us directly, I said slowly. Because if she told us, we'd ask questions. We'd investigate. We'd do exactly what we're doing now, but at the wrong time. Before we were ready. Before the threat materialized. She needed us to find this information at exactly the right moment. When we had context. When we'd understand what it meant. And when is that? Ji-won asked. Now? After Ji-won came back. After Apex made its move. After we'd fought hard enough to survive the first attack. Now we're ready to know why the attack is happening. Who's really behind it? What they want. Min-jae stood up. I need to see the accident report. The original police file. The hospital records. Everything from March 1999. Halmini would have destroyed anything incriminating, Ji-won said. Maybe. But she was also a woman who documented everything. Who kept records. Who believed in paper trails. If there's something to find, it's somewhere in her archives. We left the coffee shop. The 3 of us. For the first time in years, Min-jae and Ji-won and I were on the same side. United by the same impossible question. Is our father alive? And if he is, why is he trying to destroy us? Subscribe and share this video if you're feeling what I'm feeling right now. That sick, electric realization that everything you thought was solid ground is actually quicksand. Because we were about to start digging into the past. And what we found would be worse than any corporate conspiracy. It would be family. We went back to the family estate. The house where Min-jae grew up. Where Halmini lived until she moved to the apartment complex 3 years ago. The house had been maintained, but mostly empty since then. Cleaned regularly. Preserved. Like a museum to a family that used to live there. The archives were in the basement. Halmini had turned one of the rooms down there into a kind of record storage. File cabinets. Boxes. Decades of documents. Corporate. Personal. Legal. Medical. Everything organized with the same precise system she used for everything else in her life. Min-jae knew where to look. He'd been down here before, during the estate settlement process. He pulled open a specific cabinet. Top drawer. Files from the 1990s. Everything from that period should be here. She kept it separate. Said it was important to preserve the founding-era documentation. He started pulling folders. March 1999. April 1999. The months around the accident. Most of it was corporate. Board minutes. Financial statements. Strategic plans. The normal architecture of a company being built. But then, at the back of the drawer, a plain manila envelope. No label. Sealed with tape that had yellowed with age. Min-jae held it up to the light. I've never seen this before. Open it, Ji-won said. He did. Inside were papers. Old. Some of them photocopies. Some originals. He spread them on the table. Police report. But not the official one. A preliminary incident report. Filed by the responding officer. Before the investigation was closed. Before it became the clean, simple narrative of a tragic single-vehicle accident. I read over Min-jae's shoulder. The officer had noted something strange. Burn patterns on the vehicle inconsistent with a typical post-crash fire. Accelerant possibly used. Further investigation recommended. But there was a note in the margin. Handwritten. Investigation closed by order of Chief Inspector Kim. No further action required. Someone shut down the investigation, I said. Before they could determine if the fire was accidental, Ji-won added. Min-jae kept going through the papers. Hospital records. But not from the hospital that officially received the body. From a different hospital. A private clinic outside Seoul. Admission records for a patient checked in on March 15, 1999. The night of the accident. No name on the admission record. Just a patient number. Treatment for severe burns and smoke inhalation. Stable condition. Released to private care 3 weeks later. He didn't die in the car, Min-jae said quietly. He got out. Someone got him out. Took him to this clinic. And then And then someone made him disappear. I finished. We kept digging. Found more. Small pieces that didn't make sense on their own, but together told a story. A discharge document from the clinic, signed by a doctor whose medical license, when I looked it up on my phone, had been revoked 5 years later for falsifying medical records. A death certificate, official, filed with the government, declaring Kang Hyun-suk deceased on March 15, 1999, signed by a coroner who retired 6 months later and moved to Japan. A property deed, dated April 1999, for a small house in Jeju Island, purchased under a holding company. The same holding company that, when I traced it forward, eventually became part of the shell structure that owned the Swiss bank account. Halmini bought him a house, Ji-won said. A month after he supposedly died, she bought him a house and hid the purchase in corporate paperwork. Min-jae sat down, put his head in his hands. She faked his death, got him out of the car, paid off the doctor and the coroner, made him disappear. And then she spent the next 25 years running the company and raising me and never once told me that my father was alive. Why? I asked. Why would she do that? I don't know. But there was one more document in that envelope. At the very bottom. A letter. Handwritten. Not in Halmini's handwriting. In someone else's. A man's handwriting. Dated December 1999. 9 months after the accident. It was addressed to Halmini. And it said, I agreed to your terms. I left. I gave you the company and the boy. But you can't keep me away forever. Eventually he'll be old enough to understand. Eventually he'll take over. And when he does, I'm taking back what's mine. It was signed. H. Just the initial. But we all knew what it stood for. Hyun-suk. He's alive, Min-jae whispered. He's been alive this entire time. And now he's coming back. I looked at the letter. At the date. At the threat barely concealed in the polite language. Halmini didn't just make him disappear, I said. She made a deal with him. He'd leave. She'd run the company. Raise you. And in exchange for what? Ji-won asked. I thought about the Swiss account. About the $15 million. About the funding structure of Apex Capital. In exchange for enough money to live on. To disappear. To build a new life somewhere else. She paid him to stay away. And he did. For 25 years. Until she died. Min-jae finished. And the deal died with her. We sat in that basement surrounded by the evidence of a conspiracy that had shaped all of our lives. A conspiracy that had started before I was part of this family. Before Ji-won was old enough to remember. A conspiracy that only one person knew the full truth of, and she'd taken most of that truth to the grave. But not all of it. She'd left breadcrumbs. For us to find. When we were ready. There's more, Ji-won said suddenly. She'd been going through the other files while we read the letter. She held up a folder. Medical records. From the clinic. The patient file for the unnamed burn victim. She opened it. Inside were treatment notes. Progress reports. And at the back, a single photograph. Polaroid. Old. The colors faded. A man in a hospital bed. Face partially bandaged. But enough visible to see the features. The bone structure. The eyes. I'd seen those eyes before. In the portrait in the Kangtech lobby. In the photos around this house. In Min-jae's face when he looked a certain way. Kang Hyun-suk. Alive. Recovering. 9 months before the letter was written. Proof that he survived. Proof that Halmini knew. Proof that everything we'd been told was a lie. Min-jae took the photo. Stared at it. I need to understand why. Why did she do this? Why did she let me grow up thinking he was dead? Because she was protecting you, I said. Or protecting the company. Or both. She saw something in him. Some threat. Some instability. And she decided the only way to save Kangtech was to remove him from it completely. To make him dead to the world. To raise you as the heir without his influence. And now he's back. Using Apex. Using Ji-won. Using everything he can to take back what he thinks is his. Not thinks, Ji-won corrected. Is. Legally. If he's alive, he has a claim to Kangtech. He founded it. He never formally resigned. If he can prove he's alive. If he can prove Halmini faked his death. He owns the company. Min-jae finished. Not me. Him. The weight of that settled over all of us. This wasn't corporate warfare anymore. This wasn't about board votes and shareholder percentages and regulatory filings. This was about identity, legitimacy, family, blood. This was about a man who'd been erased coming back to reclaim everything that was taken from him. and he was willing to destroy his own son to do it. My phone rang. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. Mrs. Kong. A man's voice. Older. Cultured. Speaking English with a slight Korean accent. I believe you've been looking for me. I put it on speaker. Min Jae and Ji-won both leaned in. Who is this? I think you know. I think you found Halmiani's letter. I think you traced the account. I think you're sitting in that basement right now looking at documents that were supposed to stay buried. She always said you were clever. She was right about that. You're Kong Hyun-suk. A pause. Then I was. Once. Now I'm just a man who wants his company back. You abandoned your company. Your family. 25 years ago. I was forced out. By a woman who couldn't accept that I built something bigger than her plans for it. Who wanted to control every piece. Who saw my vision as a threat to her control. So you faked your death and let your 7-year-old son grow up thinking you were gone. I made a choice. A choice your precious Halmiani gave me. Leave or be destroyed. She had evidence. Documents. Things that would have ruined me. Ruined the company. She said if I left quietly, she'd protect Kongtech. Protect the boy. Build something worth protecting. And I believed her. And now she's dead. The deal is void. And I'm taking back what's mine. Through Apex. Through corporate warfare. Through attacking your own son. Through the tools available to me. Yes, your husband is a talented CEO. But he's leading my company. Built on my foundation. Using my name. It's time for him to step aside. Min Jae spoke for the first time. His voice was very controlled. Very cold. I'm not stepping aside. Silence on the other end. Then, Min Jae. You sound like her. That tone. That certainty. She taught you well. Don't pretend you know me. You've been gone my entire life. By her choice. Not mine. You could have come back. Anytime. You could have fought. You could have. I couldn't. You don't understand what she had on me. What she threatened. What he stopped. It doesn't matter now. What matters is this. I'm offering you a choice. The same choice she offered me. Step down. Let me take back the chairman position. Let me rebuild Kongtech the way it was supposed to be built. And I'll make sure you're taken care of. You and your family. You'll never want for anything. And if I refuse, then I'll take it by force. I have 15% through Apex. I have allies on your board. I have documentation proving I'm alive, proving Halmiani committed fraud, proving the company's succession was illegitimate. I can make this as ugly or as clean as you want it to be. But either way, I'm taking back what's mine. Kongtech isn't yours anymore, I said. It hasn't been yours for 25 years. Min Jae built this company into what it is now. He earned it. You have no claim. I have every claim. I'm the founder. I never resigned. I never died, legally, officially died. I was disappeared by a woman who's now dead and can't defend her actions. Every contract signed in my absence, every board vote, every succession document, all of it void if I can prove I was alive the entire time. And I can prove it. Then why haven't you? Min Jae asked. Why all the shell companies and the corporate warfare? Why not just show up and make your claim? Another pause. Longer this time. Because I wanted to see what you'd do. How you'd fight. If you were worthy of what I built. And I'll admit, you surprised me. You're better than I expected. Smarter. More strategic. You have her mind. Her patience. That's good. That's very good. I'm nothing like her. You're exactly like her. Which is why this is going to be more difficult than I hoped. But not impossible. You'll see. When I'm ready. When the moment is right. You'll see exactly how much leverage a dead man can have when he decides to come back to life. The line went dead. We sat in that basement in total silence. The only sound was our breathing. The only light was the single bulb overhead and the fading afternoon coming through the small window near the ceiling. He's alive, G once said. He's really alive. And he's been planning this for years. Not years, I corrected. Decades. Since the day Halmiani made him disappear. He's been waiting, building, positioning. And now that she's gone, he's making his move. What do we do? Min Jae asked. It was the first time I'd heard him ask that question without already knowing the answer. The first time he sounded truly lost. I stood up, gathered the documents. The letter, the photograph, the evidence of a dead man who wouldn't stay dead. We do what Halmiani would have done. We fight, but not the way he expects. Not with corporate tools. With truth. With exposure. With the one thing he can't fight. What's that? Publicity. He's been hiding for 25 years. He's built his entire strategy on operating from the shadows. using proxies, shell companies, anonymous capital. The moment he steps into the light, the moment he has to publicly prove he's Kang Hyun-suk, he loses his greatest advantage. But if he proves it, then we deal with that. But we make him prove it in public, in front of the media, in front of investors, in front of every person who's known this family for decades, and will have questions about where he's been and why he's coming back now. We make him explain why he abandoned his 7-year-old son, why he let everyone think he was dead, why his first act of resurrection is trying to destroy the company he supposedly loved. That's not strategy, Ji-won said. That's warfare. Good. Because he declared war first. Now we show him what war actually looks like when you're fighting people who have something to protect. I looked at both of them, brother and sister, Min-jae and Ji-won, who'd spent years as enemies, who'd been turned against each other by people playing games they didn't even know were being played. Are you with me? I asked Ji-won. She looked at her brother, then at me, then at the photograph of their father lying in a hospital bed while their grandmother orchestrated his disappearance. Yes, she said. I'm with you. Because whoever that man is on the phone, he's not my father. My father died 25 years ago, and I'm not giving my company to a ghost. We had 3 days to prepare before Halmiani's final secret would become public. 3 days before the man who was supposed to be dead would have to prove he was alive. 3 days before this family would face the biggest test it had ever faced. And we were going to use every single one of them. Hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications because part 10 is coming. And it's the one where we make a dead man explain why he came back, where we force him into the light, where we find out if blood is thicker than water, or if 25 years of abandonment made both worthless. This family has survived corporate warfare, board coups, international conspiracies, personal betrayals. Now we're about to find out if we can survive the truth. I'm not done. We're not done. Part 10. Coming soon.